Pick up your phone and scroll through any social media platform for 10 minutes. Count how many times you see a watch, a car, a handbag, a pair of sneakers, or a hotel suite presented not as a product, but as evidence of a life well lived. Count how many times the caption implies that the person holding the item has figured something out that you have not yet. Count how many times you feel, even briefly, the pull of wanting not the object itself, but the feeling the object seems to promise. That pull is not a personal weakness. It is the output of one of the most sophisticated and well-funded persuasion systems ever constructed. And understanding how it works, what it costs, and who it actually serves is one of the most financially important things a person can do. Luxury consumption is not a modern invention. Human beings have used visible possessions to signal status, communicate belonging, and establish social position for as long as human societies have existed. The archaeological record shows evidence of status objects, jewelry, decorated weapons, elaborate clothing, in virtually every ancient civilization. The impulse is not manufactured, it is deeply human. What is manufactured is the specific form that impulse takes in a modern consumer economy, and the extraordinary efficiency with which it has been engineered to extract money from people across every income level. The luxury market is not a market that serves the wealthy. It is a market that serves itself, using the aspirations of the non-wealthy to fund the lifestyles of the few who profit from it. The first mechanism is what economists call positional consumption. The value of a positional good is not intrinsic. It does not derive from the quality of the materials, the engineering precision, or the functional superiority of the product. It derives from the social meaning attached to owning it and from the fact that not everyone can. A watch that keeps time, no better than a $20 alternative, sells for $20,000 because of what wearing it communicates to other people. A handbag that holds no more than a $40 alternative sells for $4,000 because of the brand name on the clasp. The moment a positional good becomes accessible to everyone, its value collapses. This is why luxury brands invest enormous resources in maintaining the perception of exclusivity, limited editions, waiting lists, selective distribution, price increases that outpace inflation every year. The artificial scarcity is the product. The bag is just the delivery mechanism. What this means for the person buying the item is that they are not purchasing quality. They are purchasing a social signal. And social signals have a specific and well-documented problem. They depreciate. The new car becomes last year's model. The current season's handbag is replaced by the next season's. The sneaker collaboration that sold out in minutes is on the resale market within a year at a fraction of the price. The person who bought the signal finds themselves needing to buy the next one to maintain the position the first one briefly purchased. This is not a cycle that ends. It is the design. The second mechanism is financing. The luxury market has understood for decades that its most profitable customers are not the genuinely wealthy, but the aspirationally wealthy. People who earn enough to make monthly payments, but not enough to absorb the full cost. Car leasing exists almost entirely to make this transaction possible. A vehicle that costs $60,000 becomes a vehicle that costs $800 a month. A number that sounds manageable until you calculate what $800 a month compounds to over a decade of making that choice repeatedly. The fashion and accessories market has adopted buy now, pay later services with the same logic. A $1,200 handbag becomes 4 payments of $300. The psychological friction of spending $1,200 in one transaction is removed. The financial reality of spending $1,200 remains. The platform profits from the transaction fee. The brand profits from the sale, and the buyer acquires a depreciating signal and a payment obligation. Credit cards structured with reward points tied to luxury spending complete the picture. The card offers airline miles, hotel points, or cashback on premium purchases, creating the impression that the luxury spending is somehow financially rational, that you are earning something by spending. The average credit card interest rate makes this arithmetic deeply unfavorable for anyone who carries a balance, which the majority of reward card holders do. The reward is a marketing mechanism. The interest is the product. The third mechanism is identity attachment. The luxury market's most powerful tool is not the product itself, but the story it tells about who you are if you own it. Watch advertising does not sell watches. It sells the image of a person who wears that watch. Confident, successful, recognized, admired. Car advertising does not sell cars. It sells the version of yourself that drives that car. Free, powerful, arrived. Handbag advertising does not sell bags. It sells membership in a community of people who have achieved something worth displaying. The identity story works because identity is genuinely important to human beings. The sense of who we are, how others see us, and what group we belong to are not trivial concerns. They are central to psychological well-being. The luxury market inserts itself into this legitimate psychological need and offers to address it through consumption. The product becomes a shortcut to an identity that the buyer either has not yet built or does not feel secure enough in to display without the external prop. The financial consequence of identity-based purchasing is that the purchases are not evaluated the way functional purchases are. A functional purchase, a washing machine, a laptop, a set of tires, is assessed on whether it performs its intended function adequately for a reasonable cost. An identity purchase is assessed on whether it produces the feeling of being the person the buyer wants to be. That feeling is subjective, temporary, and impossible to fully satisfy through material acquisition. The buyer is chasing something the product cannot permanently deliver, which means the purchasing cycle continues. Before we continue, take a second to like or subscribe. It is a simple action from you, but it helps us tremendously. The fourth mechanism is social comparison, and it has been supercharged by social media in ways that make the previous generation's version of the same problem look modest by comparison. Research on social comparison consistently shows that human beings assess their own well-being not in absolute terms, but relative to the people around them. A household earning $60,000 a year in a community where the average income is $40,000 feels financially comfortable. The same household in a community where the average income is $120,000 feels financially inadequate despite the objective income being unchanged. Social media has collapsed the physical boundaries of the comparison community. A person in a modest apartment in an ordinary city now sees, every day, the curated highlights of people whose income, lifestyle, and possessions are in the top fraction of a percent of the global population, and the algorithm serves this content preferentially because engagement is highest when aspiration is activated. The comparison group has shifted from the neighborhood to the global highlight reel, and the reference point for what constitutes a normal and adequate life has been reset accordingly. The luxury industry benefits from this directly. The aspirational content on social media is partly organic and partly paid. Influencer partnerships, brand deals, gifted products placed in the hands of people whose audiences are precisely the demographic the brand wants to reach. The line between authentic lifestyle content and commercial advertising has been deliberately blurred to the point where the viewer cannot reliably distinguish the two. The feeling generated by the content, inadequacy, aspiration, desire, is the intended product of both. The fifth mechanism is the opportunity cost that luxury consumption produces, and that almost no luxury marketing ever acknowledges. Every dollar spent on a depreciating status signal is a dollar not invested in an appreciating asset. This gap compounds over time in ways that the person standing in the boutique at the moment of purchase almost never calculates. A person who spends $1,200 on a handbag that will be worth $300 in 5 years has not spent $900. They have spent the future value of $1,200 invested, which at a 7% annual return over 20 years is approximately $4,600. A person who leases a $60,000 car every 3 years instead of driving a reliable $15,000 car and investing the difference is not making a slightly less optimal financial choice. They are removing tens of thousands of dollars from their financial future every decade. These calculations are not made at the point of purchase because the luxury market has no interest in making them, and the buyer's emotional state at the point of purchase is not one that is conducive to long-term financial thinking. The boutique is warm, the staff are attentive, the item is beautiful, and the feeling of acquiring it is immediate and real. The compound cost is abstract and distant, and the immediate emotion wins. The sixth mechanism is the normalization of luxury spending within social groups. Once a person begins making luxury purchases, those purchases become the baseline against which their social circle calibrates expectations, including their own. Attending events in a cheaper car feels wrong. Showing up to dinner without the right accessories produces self-consciousness. The holiday destination that would have felt aspirational before the luxury consumption began now feels like a step down. The social group does not necessarily enforce these standards explicitly. The enforcement is internal, driven by the self-comparison the individual makes between their current presentation and the presentation they have established as their normal. The luxury spending creates a new floor for the lifestyle, and every financial decision below that floor produces discomfort. The floor can be raised almost indefinitely. It can only be lowered at significant psychological cost. This is the trap that the title of this video is describing. The luxury items do not keep you broke by being expensive once. They keep you broke by redefining what normal costs. The person who genuinely cannot afford the lifestyle they are funding through luxury consumption rarely experiences this as a financial problem in the short term. They experience it as a cash flow problem. A temporary tightness that will resolve when the next raise comes, when the business does better, when the investment pays off. The purchases feel like evidence of success rather than causes of financial precarity. The gap between the projected future financial position that justifies the spending and the actual present financial position that cannot support it is closed by optimism rather than by arithmetic. The math eventually arrives. It arrives in the form of a savings account that has not grown in 3 years despite a rising income. It arrives in the form of a retirement projection that requires a rate of return that history does not support. It arrives in the form of a job loss or a medical bill or a market correction that reveals how thin the margin was between the lifestyle and the financial reality underneath it. The alternative is not deprivation. This is the version of this argument that the luxury market most wants you to hear. That any criticism of luxury consumption is really just an argument for a joyless, restrictive life in which you are never allowed to enjoy the money you earn. That framing is a false choice designed to prevent the more uncomfortable question from being asked. The uncomfortable question is not whether you can afford the item. It is whether the item is actually doing what you think it is doing, whether the watch is producing the feeling it promised, or whether it produced the feeling for 6 weeks and has since become an object you barely notice. Whether the car is delivering the identity experience that the advertisement implied, or whether it is just the way you get to work. Whether the handbag is signaling success to anyone who matters, or whether it is signaling it primarily to people who are also spending money they cannot afford on signals that nobody is actually buying. The financial strategy that works is not the one that eliminates enjoyment. It is the one that distinguishes between spending that genuinely enriches your life and spending that enriches the accounts of the people who designed the aspiration you are purchasing. Those are different things, and being able to tell them apart is one of the most practically important financial skills available, because the luxury market is not your enemy, and it is not your friend. It is an industry with a product, a distribution system, and a marketing apparatus of extraordinary sophistication aimed at one outcome: your money leaving your account and entering theirs. Knowing that changes nothing about the products. It changes everything about how you evaluate the decision to buy them. Click this video to watch how your dream car will make you broke, because the car is where the luxury spending trap is most visible, most expensive, and most normalized. And understanding the specific numbers behind it makes everything in this video concrete.